Hi, welcome to our channel where we share the most intriguing stories. I moved to this quiet suburb thinking I'd found the perfect home, but instead of peace, I found a war over my own mail. First, my mailbox vanished, then my packages. And then I realized the HOA president knew way too much about the neighbors. When I set up a camera, the truth shocked me. Moving into a new home should be an exciting fresh start, but for me, it turned into something else entirely. My name is Nick Holmes, and I had just settled into what I thought would be the perfect suburban retreat. The house was everything I dreamed of, spacious with a well-kept lawn, a sturdy porch, and a quiet neighborhood that seemed peaceful at first glance. I worked remotely, which meant I spent a lot of time at home, relying on deliveries for everything from groceries to tech gadgets. My mailbox was practically a lifeline, but little did I know that something as simple as receiving mail would soon turn into a battle of wits and perseverance. Shortly after moving in, I started hearing whispers about Karen Wilkes, the president of the Homeowners Association. Every neighborhood has its gossip, and I figured she was just another overzealous community leader who liked to enforce HOA rules a little too strictly. People described her as someone who always knew too much, who had just ordered a new couch, who had a private loan, even which couples were having marital issues. It was eerie, but I brushed it off. Maybe she was just the type who thrived on suburban drama. Then one morning, I stepped outside to check my mail, and my mailbox was gone. At first, I thought maybe there had been an accident, a prank perhaps. But when I saw the wooden post still standing, perfectly intact, my confusion turned into frustration. Someone hadn't just hit it with a car or vandalized it, they had deliberately removed it. I called the HOA office, expecting to speak with some secretary who could explain what happened. Instead, Karen Wilkes herself answered the phone. "Oh, Nick, I was just about to call you," she said in a syrupy sweet voice. "Your mailbox didn't meet our community safety and aesthetic standards, so we had it removed." "What?" I blinked, trying to process her words. "You had it removed without telling me?" "We enforce community guidelines for the benefit of everyone," she continued, ignoring my indignation. "Your mailbox was outdated and improperly positioned, but don't worry, you can install one of our approved models. I can send you the order form." I glanced at the now empty space where my mailbox had been. "Karen, that was my property. You can't just remove something from my yard without my permission." "Oh, but HOA guidelines supersede personal preferences," she replied smoothly. "Didn't you read the community handbook? We have a standardized mailbox design that all residents must use for security purposes." That was when I realized something was off. She wasn't just nitpicking about design. She wanted me to buy a mailbox from HOA, something she controlled. Still, I decided not to escalate the situation. It was just a mailbox after all. If replacing it with an HOA-approved model would make my life easier, then fine. I filled out the form, paid the outrageous fee they charged for their special mailbox, and had it installed within a few days. At that point, I thought the problem was solved. I was wrong. A week passed, and I had just started getting used to my new HOA-approved mailbox. It wasn't anything special, just a dull, standardized metal box mounted on a sturdy post. It felt ridiculous that I had been forced to replace my perfectly fine mailbox with this bland, overpriced alternative, but I let it go. At least the issue was behind me, or so I thought. One crisp morning, I stepped outside with a cup of coffee ready to grab my mail. I walked to the curb, expecting to find the usual stack of letters, maybe a small package or two. Instead, I found nothing. Not just an empty mailbox, no mailbox at all. I stood there, blinking at the bare wooden post where my brand new HOA-approved mailbox had been installed just days ago. At first, I laughed, a dry, disbelieving chuckle. Had I been robbed? Who the hell steals a mailbox? My eyes scanned up and down the street. Everything looked perfectly normal. My neighbors' mailboxes were still standing proudly in front of their homes, untouched. Annoyance bubbled up inside me. I pulled out my phone and dialed the HOA office. It didn't even take 2 rings before the all-too-familiar voice of Karen Wilkes answered. "Oh, Nick, I was actually expecting your call," she said in that same falsely sweet tone that already made my skin crawl. "You were expecting my call?" I repeated, already feeling my blood pressure rise. "Karen, my mailbox is gone, again, and I have a strong feeling you know why." A pause. Then, in a tone as if she were scolding a misbehaving child, she said, "Well, Nick, it turns out your mailbox still wasn't properly positioned according to community guidelines. It was obstructing the sidewalk by a few inches. I clenched my jaw, looking at the post. There was no sidewalk obstruction. My mailbox had been in the same place since I moved in. Hell, it had been in the exact same place as the old one, which she had also removed. "You're telling me," I said slowly, keeping my voice even, "that I paid for a brand new mailbox, one you forced me to buy from HOA, and you still had it removed." Karen let out a dramatic sigh, as if I were exhausting her patience. "It's a shame, really. We try to ensure everything in the community adheres to the highest standards. Perhaps you should consider ordering a replacement directly through our approved installation service. That way, we can guarantee it's positioned correctly." That's when it hit me. This wasn't about aesthetics, regulations, or safety. This was a racket. HOA had its own approved mailbox installation service. The same service Karen just happened to be pushing on me now, meaning every time someone's mailbox was non-compliant, they had to keep paying to fix the issue through a company she conveniently controlled. I exhaled slowly, pressing my fingers to my temple. "Karen, let me be very clear. I installed the exact mailbox you required in the same position as the previous one. There was no violation." "Well," she replied smoothly, "if you feel there's been a mistake, you can file a formal appeal with the HOA board." Of course, a bureaucratic nightmare designed to go in circles. I knew how these appeals worked. They dragged on for months, buried in paperwork, while in the meantime, you were forced to comply just to get your mail. I was done playing her game. "Fine," I said, keeping my voice calm. "I'll handle it myself." She hesitated, probably expecting me to argue. "Oh, well, all right then. Just be sure to check the community handbook this time." I'd hate to see another violation. I hung up without another word. That same afternoon, I drove to a hardware store and bought a new mailbox. But this time, I didn't get the HOA-approved model. No, I bought a heavily reinforced, tamper-resistant steel mailbox. I mounted it into the ground with deep-set concrete and rebar. It wasn't going anywhere. As I wiped the sweat off my forehead, admiring my work, I felt a grim sense of satisfaction. "Let's see you try and take this one, Karen." I woke up the next morning feeling smug. The fortress of a mailbox I had installed was practically unmovable, set in concrete, reinforced with steel, and built to withstand an earthquake if necessary. There was no way HOA or Karen could mess with it now. At least, that's what I thought. Later that afternoon, I stepped outside to check my mail, already imagining Karen's frustration when she saw she couldn't simply remove it this time. But when I reached the curb, I stopped dead in my tracks. The mailbox was gone. Again. But this time, the post was still there. Even the bolts securing it to the concrete were untouched. The box itself had simply vanished. I stared at the empty space where my reinforced mailbox had been, my hands tightening into fists. It didn't make sense. It had been bolted down. There were no signs of struggle, no damage, nothing. It was as if someone had carefully unscrewed it and walked away. And that's when it hit me. Someone had used a key. A chill ran down my spine. My mailbox had a lock, and only 2 keys existed, one with me and the other that came with the original packaging. But if someone had opened it cleanly and removed it without force, that meant they had another copy. Karen. I turned on my heel and marched straight back inside, grabbing my phone. I didn't bother calling the HOA office this time. I called Karen directly. She picked up almost instantly, as if she'd been expecting me. "Nick," she chirped, "what a surprise. I was just about to send you an update on your mailbox situation." "My mailbox," I said, my voice low and controlled, "is gone. Again." Karen let out a dramatic sigh. "Yes, unfortunately there was another compliance issue. The mailbox itself was inappropriate for our community's security standards." Security standards? My fingers tightened around my phone. "Karen, do you really expect me to believe that?" "Well," she said smoothly, "if you had used the installation service we recommended, you wouldn't have to keep dealing with these problems. We ensure all official mailboxes are set up properly and are fully compliant." There it was again, that hint in her tone, that smugness. She wanted me to order another mailbox from HOA, one of the official ones, the ones she controlled. That's when I realized the real scam. Karen wasn't just forcing people to replace mailboxes. She was replacing them with ones she had access to. HOA had control over the keys. That's why she always seemed to know too much about the residents, who ordered what, when they received packages, even private details from letters. She wasn't just stealing mail, she was reading it. I exhaled slowly, my mind already working. I wasn't going to argue with Karen. I wasn't going to threaten her. I was going to catch her in the act. I didn't sleep that night. My mind was racing, piecing together every interaction I'd had with Karen since I moved in. She wasn't just an overzealous HOA president. She had access to people's mail, their packages, their private information. No wonder she always seemed to know too much about the neighborhood. The only question was, how was she using that information? By morning, I had a plan. First, I checked my online orders. A few days ago, I had ordered a high-end gaming laptop, something I had been waiting weeks for. According to the tracking info, it had been delivered yesterday morning, right before my reinforced mailbox mysteriously disappeared. I never received it. That confirmed it. Karen wasn't just removing mailboxes, she was stealing their contents. To test my theory, I searched the local online marketplace for high-value electronics being resold. It took less than 5 minutes to find a suspicious listing. Brand new gaming laptop, unopened box, no receipt, cash only. Seller located in my city. I clicked on the profile. Anonymous username. No transaction history. Classic burner account. I copied the listing's images and did a quick reverse image search. No matches. That meant whoever posted the listing had taken these pictures themselves. My gut twisted. I wasn't just guessing anymore. I knew Karen was behind this. I needed proof. So I devised a simple but effective plan. Bait her. I ordered a new package, but this time I rigged it. It was just a regular cardboard box, but inside was a GPS tracker, a small discrete device that would let me see exactly where the package ended up. I set the delivery for the next day. Then, for good measure, I installed a hidden camera inside my mailbox post, not on the outside, inside. That way, whoever opened it wouldn't even realize they were being recorded. Now, all I had to do was wait. The next afternoon, my phone buzzed with a notification. Your package has been delivered. Showtime. I let an hour pass, then checked my mailbox. Empty. I rushed inside and opened my tracking app. Signal active. The package was on the move. At first, it hovered near my house. Then, after a few minutes, it started moving down the street. It wasn't going to the post office. It wasn't going to a neighbor's house. It was going straight to Karen's house. I clenched my jaw. Got you. Before taking any action, I checked the footage from my hidden camera. The moment I saw it, I felt a surge of vindication. There she was, Karen, middle of the day, broad as sunlight, using a key to open my mailbox and pull out the package. She didn't hesitate. No sneaking, no looking around. She just unlocked it like she owned the damn thing. This wasn't just suspicion anymore. This was undeniable proof. I had everything I needed. Tomorrow, I was going to end this. The next morning, I woke up with one goal. Karen was going down. I now had undeniable proof. A GPS tracker leading straight to her house and video footage of her unlocking my mailbox and stealing my package. She had been doing this openly, without fear of consequences, and the worst part, she had been getting away with it for who knows how long. But I wasn't just going to call the cops and let them handle it. I wanted everyone to see exactly what kind of person their beloved HOA president really was. I started by sending anonymized screenshots of my GPS tracker's route and stills from the video footage to a few trusted neighbors. The ones I knew had also lost packages before. Hey, I think I found out what's been happening to our mail. It didn't take long before my phone blew up with responses. Holy shit, Karen, are you serious? I knew it. My medicine went missing last month. She must have taken it. What do we do now? Perfect. The seed was planted. Now, time to execute phase 2. That afternoon, I posted an emergency HOA neighborhood meeting request in the community chat. Karen always made a big show of transparency and open communication, so if she declined, it would make her look suspicious. Predictably, she accepted. The meeting was set for 7 p.m. at the community center. I spent the next few hours preparing my evidence. I downloaded the full video recording of her theft, saved the GPS tracker logs, and gathered screenshots from the online resale listing of my stolen laptop. Then, just to twist the knife, I made one last move. I printed out flyers, a simple layout, a photo of Karen from my video footage standing next to my mailbox, caught red-handed, a caption in bold letters, "Who really controls your mail?" And at the bottom, my email for anyone to send in their own missing mail complaints. At exactly 6:55 p.m., I arrived at the community center. I wasn't alone. Dozens of neighbors had shown up, more than any HOA meeting had ever seen before. People had been whispering all day about the rumors spreading around. Karen, of course, was completely unaware that she was about to be exposed. She sat at the front of the room, her usual smug self, acting like she was in control. She cleared her throat. "All right, everyone, let's get started. Now, I understand there have been concerns about security and mail deliveries, so I stood up. Actually, Karen, I'd like to address that myself." She blinked, caught off guard. "Oh? Well, Nick, this isn't really the format for personal complaints, but if you insist." I walked to the front of the room and hooked up my laptop to the projector. The screen flickered to life. The first thing that appeared was the footage of her stealing my package. Gasps rippled through the audience. Karen went pale. "Nick, what the hell is this?" She snapped, trying to keep her composure. "Oh, this." I gestured at the screen. "This is you, unlocking my mailbox and stealing my package. And here, I clicked the next slide, showing the GPS tracker route leading right to her house, is proof that my missing package ended up at your front door." The room exploded. "Oh my God, she's been stealing from us. That explains why my son's birthday gift never showed up. You absolute snake, Karen." Karen's face twisted in rage. This is fake. You've doctored this footage." I didn't even bother responding. I simply clicked to the final slide, the screenshot of my stolen laptop being sold online by an anonymous seller from our town. Everyone knew. Everyone saw. And Karen, she had nowhere to hide. The silence in the community center was thick with shock. The neighbors, once loyal to their diligent HOA president, now stared at Karen with a mix of disgust, betrayal, and rage. Karen, however, wasn't the type to go down without a fight. "This is a setup," she shrieked, rising to her feet. "Nick is manipulating all of you. That footage could have been edited. The GPS data could be faked, but no one was buying it. You had a key to his mailbox," someone shouted. "How do you explain that?" Karen's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. Another neighbor stood up. "Now that I think about it, my insulin shipment never arrived last month. My daughter's college acceptance letter went missing," another voice added. That was all it took. The floodgates burst open. One by one, dozens of people started recounting their own suspiciously missing packages, legal documents, personal letters. Some had dismissed it as bad luck. Others had blamed the post office. But now they knew the truth. Karen's face twisted into a mask of fury. I was protecting you all," she snapped. "Do you have any idea how many scammers try to steal mail? I was monitoring deliveries to make sure nothing fell into the wrong hands." A neighbor scoffed. "So you monitored my missing Amazon packages by reselling them online?" Karen's face turned red. I folded my arms. "Face it, Karen, you weren't protecting us. You were robbing us blind." The crowd was against her now. The murmurs turned into full-blown outrage. HOA members demanded her resignation. Someone pulled out their phone, already calling the police. Karen backed away, her confident facade crumbling. For the first time, she looked afraid. But this was only the beginning of the end for her. Karen's face was a mask of desperation as the room erupted in chaos. She tried to argue, tried to regain control, but it was too late. The dam had broken. The neighbors, her former supporters, were now yelling over each other, demanding justice. And then, as if on cue, the doors to the community center swung open. 2 uniformed police officers walked in. The room fell silent. A man near the front quickly waved them over. "Officers, that's her. She's been stealing our mail." Karen whipped around, panic flashing in her eyes. "This is ridiculous. I am the HOA president. I demand you remove these troublemakers from this meeting." One of the officers, a middle-aged man with a stern expression, held up a hand. "Ma'am, we're here because we received multiple reports of mail theft, and based on the evidence provided, you are under investigation." Karen's eyes darted to me, filled with pure venom. You set me up. This is harassment. I'll have you sued for defamation." I smirked. "Good luck with that. Maybe you can represent yourself from prison." One of the officers pulled out a pair of handcuffs. "Karen Wilkes, you're under arrest for federal mail theft. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law." Karen stumbled back, hands raised. "Wait, this is all a huge misunderstanding. I was just keeping the neighborhood safe." But no one was buying it. She shouted, kicked, and cursed as the officers turned her around and snapped the cuffs onto her wrists. As they escorted her out, one of the neighbors, an elderly woman who had lived here for decades, called after her, "Who's protecting you now, Karen?" The door slammed shut behind them, and, just like that, Karen was gone. The moment Karen was hauled out of the community center in handcuffs, the room fell into stunned silence. It was as if no one truly believed it until they saw it happen. The tyrant of the HOA, the woman who had terrorized this neighborhood for years, was finally exposed and taken down. Then, almost all at once, applause and cheers erupted. People clapped each other on the back, shaking their heads in disbelief. Some were still in shock, processing everything they had just witnessed. Others looked downright victorious. She really thought she could get away with all that? One man muttered, shaking his head. "I knew something was off about her," a woman said, crossing her arms. "She always had that creepy way of knowing what I ordered before I even told anyone." I stood near the front, arms crossed, watching it all unfold. It was satisfying, yes, but I knew it wasn't over just yet. In the days that followed, the truth about Karen's scheme spread like wildfire. The local news even picked up the story. HOA president arrested for mail theft scandal. And soon, reporters were knocking on doors, interviewing residents, exposing just how deep her crimes ran. It turned out she had been stealing mail for years. Not just packages, she had taken legal documents, credit card statements, even medical prescriptions, anything that could give her leverage over people. More residents came forward, filing reports. Lawsuits were being prepared. And the HOA, it crumbled. With Karen gone, the remaining board members resigned one by one, unwilling to deal with the public outrage. A meeting was held to discuss reforming the association completely, or better yet, getting rid of it entirely. For the first time since I had moved here, people weren't afraid anymore. A week later, I stepped outside to check my mail. This time, my mailbox was still there, untouched. No one had removed it. No one had stolen anything from it. And as I pulled out my stack of letters and a brand new laptop, the one I had to reorder, I smiled to myself. Karen had tried to control everything in this neighborhood. Now she controlled nothing. She was facing serious federal charges for mail theft, fraud, and illegal surveillance. I had no doubt that for the next few years, her new neighborhood would have bars on the windows. I turned, walking back to my house, feeling lighter than I had in weeks. For once, justice had truly been served. Karen's arrest was just the beginning. Over the next few weeks, the investigation uncovered the full extent of her crimes. She had been stealing mail for years, using her position as HOA president to cover it up. Federal agents got involved. Mail theft was a serious federal crime, and the sheer number of victims turned it into a high-profile case. When the trial finally began, the courtroom was packed. Dozens of neighbors showed up, eager to see justice served. Karen, however, was still clinging to her delusions of control. She sat stiffly at the defendant's table, her hair no longer perfectly styled, her usual smugness replaced with thinly veiled panic. The prosecution didn't hold back. They laid out all the evidence. The hidden camera footage of her unlocking my mailbox, the GPS tracking data showing stolen packages leading to her house, the resale listings of items taken from the neighborhood. Witness after witness took the stand, recounting missing prescription medications, stolen legal documents, lost birthday gifts for their children. And then came Karen's turn to speak. She stood, clearing her throat dramatically. "This is all a witch hunt," she declared, her voice wavering slightly. "I was simply monitoring deliveries for the good of the community. You should be thanking me, not dragging me through this circus." The judge raised an eyebrow. "Miss Wilkes, are you saying you had permission to open other people's mail and sell their packages online?" Karen hesitated for just a second, long enough for murmurs to spread through the crowd. Then she doubled down. "I was preventing crime. If anything, I should be rewarded for my efforts. And let's talk about Nick Holmes." She turned, pointing an accusatory finger at me. "He set me up. This was all a personal vendetta against me because I enforced HOA rules and he didn't like it." I didn't even react. I didn't need to. The prosecutor just sighed and held up a document. "Miss Wilkes, this is a statement from your own bank account, showing thousands of dollars in transactions linked to selling stolen items." Karen's face drained of color. That could be anyone's account," she screeched. The judge rubbed his temples. "Miss Wilkes, please sit down." Karen huffed but complied, gripping the edge of the table so tightly her knuckles turned white. After only 30 minutes of jury deliberation, the verdict came in. Guilty. The judge adjusted his glasses, looking down at her with disdain. Miss Wilkes, for federal mail theft, fraud, and unlawful surveillance, I hereby sentence you to 6 years in federal prison. Gasps filled the courtroom. Karen shot up from her seat. This is outrageous. I built this community. I am Ho. You can't do this to me. The bailiff approached, but Karen wasn't done making a fool of herself. I'll sue every last one of you, she shrieked. I have connections. The sound of handcuffs clicking around her wrists silenced her. As she was dragged away, she threw one last desperate glare at the crowd. You'll regret this. All of you. No one looked the least bit concerned. Karen was gone. The HOA collapsed soon after, and the neighborhood finally breathed a sigh of relief. Without Karen's grip, people actually started working together, as neighbors, not as prisoners of HOA rules. 1 month later, I stepped outside to check my mail. My mailbox was still there, untouched, secure. I pulled out my latest delivery, a brand new laptop, the one Karen had stolen and tried to sell. This time, it had arrived safely. I smiled, breathing in the fresh air. Karen had spent years trying to control this neighborhood. Now, the only thing she controlled was a prison cell.